We'll be live.
Let's get shirky.
Love it, love it. I don't know why every time you have something Islamic related, it's like
That's
I don't
fun. It's a good theme, and I talk so much about Christian stuff all the time, and it's like, I just this is my one chance. I really get to talk about some other religion. So I'll start trying to come up with some that are more Hindu focused as well.
Hindu.
Buddhism, yeah, just so I
Ooh,
can
yeah,
kind
yeah,
of spread the love around, as they
yeah, yeah.
say.
Susanna in the live chat says that she loves the new cover. Yeah, I like it. It's great. It's great. So everyone, we're gonna be answering Patreon questions and also super chat. If you want to use the super chat, we answer that as well. And then after we answer the Patreon questions and the super chats, we will post the link on the community tab for our YouTube members. If they would like to come up and talk to us live on air, we'll do that. Okay. And Higgs boson is here. All right, let's go through the questions. Okay, let me do a. Oh, wait a second. We already got a super chat. Jesus.
Woo!
Okay, so guys, when we get super chats, we'll stop the Patreon questions and we answer the super chat, and then we'll go back to the Patreon questions. Okay, so we got a $5 super chat by Mustafa is asking, do you believe that additional sanctions against Iran is a good thing? Reza Aslan argues that doing so will cause more drift from Western influence. That is not accurate. Yeah, more sanctions against the. I suggest not saying sanctions against Iran. It's sanctions against the Islamic Republic. It's against the government. Okay, and the people of Iran are demanding more sanctions. Like the majority of the people who are in the streets, who are protesting, who are anti against the government, are signaling to all the other countries that this is what they want. Right. So sanctions, of course, has a lot of negative side effects on the people. It's true that it harms the people as well. However, it's choosing between multiple bad options. This is the least bad option, right? Because you don't have that many um, ways to pressure the Islamic government. There's only the way I describe to people why the sanctions against the Islamic Republic make sense is this: there's only three things you could do when there is such wide human rights violations and when there's such a demand from the people within the country for you to do something about it, right? The international community could either one, do nothing, two, start a war, three, use economic pressure, which would be sanctions. Okay, there is really no other option, right? Doing nothing means that the world just closes its eyes to human rights violations and doesn't respond to anything, right? That's not a good option. Starting a war is also not a very good option. The people in Iran are not asking for that, and the consequences for that is like really bad. Especially we have in recent history we have seen what that does in Iraq or in Afghanistan. So that's not so it leaves economic pressure, which would be sanctions again. Some people, a lot of people would suffer. There are ways to make sanctions more targeted at the government rather than people. It's even when you try as much as you can to make it targeted on the government, people will still suffer. But again, it's good to attempt to make it targeted, like not make it like the sanctions that United States had on Iraq. Those were horrible, inhumane sanctions targeted specifically to hurt the people, which killed around half a million children in Iraq. Sanctions can be done really badly, right? Sanctions that are attempted to make sure to, well, not make sure to try to reduce the harm on the people and focus it on the government. Again, in a country like Iran, that is difficult because of how widespread the influence of the IRGC, which is a military branch of the government, right? Like there's two main military organizations. IRGC is the main one, and it's so influential with the economy that any sanctions you put on the IRGC is going to impact the economy as a whole. But again, you can make it as targeted as you want, as possible. That one thing that Reza Aslan doesn't understand is that we have had experiences with removing sanctions on Iran, right? And we have seen where that money goes, right? Reza Aslan doesn't understand many things. Reza Aslan is somebody who believes that the current government in Iran is as bad as the Shah was, right? So that shows how out of touch with reality this person is, right? Reza Aslan thinks that um, Iran was in full compliance with the IAEA when Obama was removing sanctions in the GCPOA deal, nuclear deal with Iran, that Iran was in full compliance. And for that, they keep citing that IAEA kept saying that everything looks donkey-dory based on what they're saying. But IAEA report was only based on the areas that they were observing. That is what the report was meant to indicate, that Iran was in compliance with regards to the sites that the IAEA was observing. However, I don't know. Even I listened to Reza Aslan even quite recently saying that Iran was in full compliance, even though we have had reports for years now that Iran was doing enriching uranium off of the sites that IAEA was observing, right? We have and the Iran has no explanations for these detections of all these enrichment uranium. So even during the JCPOA with Obama, Iran was trying to find ways to do enriching of uranium in ways that was not detectable. So we know that they were not in compliance. We have a lot of evidence for that. We even have audio recordings of Fakhrizadeh, who was assassinated by Mossad. Thank you, Mossad. That they were always trying to not get to nuclear energy, but nuclear weapons. That was always their intention, even when they were, even when the sanctions were being removed, right? And we also have information. We also know, we have also analysis that the money that it was flowing in to Iran's economy was being used for terrorist-related activity, for enriching the parts of Iran that is not necessarily the people, but it's government. It's for building the government's resources outside of its borders, for supporting Hamas, for supporting Hezbollah, for increasing Iran's influence outside of its borders, for being a menace and causing a lot of headache for all its neighbors. We know all of this, right? So yeah, Reza Aslan is full of crap, and he shouldn't be taken seriously. Anybody who comes and constantly argues that the Islamic Republic of Iran is bad, but it's almost like almost not the same as Shah, the Pahlavi dynasty that came before it. I'm not saying the Pahlavis were completely innocent and had no problem, but they were by far the best, way better than the Islamic Republic, and one of the best regimes that Iran even had, even though they still had their problems. But they managed to make the country leap multiple steps into forward based on what they did. But yeah, what do you think?
Yeah, I don't have much to add because I think you did a really good job there. But I will just point to the fact that there are definitely videos on this channel and Secular Jihadists where I know you have gone through, where there are various doctors that have lived in Iran for a very long time that are expressing the reason that they can't get the medical necessities has nothing to do with the sanctions. It has to do with the regime. The regime is purposefully doing things that make it harder for them to get those important things. And whether or not the sanctions are there doesn't change that. And I think that's a very good point that, yeah, like a lot of the Iranian people know where the problem is coming from. And it is the Iranian regime. And I mean,
yeah, the sanctions has an influence, as it has given the regime a cover.
Yes.
To blame it on the sanctions.
Yes.
Right. So there's a lot of things that the regime does for its own benefits, and it's harming the people. And because we have sanctions, it always like, well, it's not us, it's the sanctions. But people can see, no, it's this one is you, right? Like for example, there are drugs that the regime is allowed to bring from outside and has the money to bring from outside, okay? But they're not bringing from outside so that they could have a monopoly over those medicines within the country so that they could make money off of it.
Yeah.
and people are dying, and the medicine is not good, and the medicine is low in supply, and people are dying because of it. And when people die and there's a lot of problems, the government is like, well, it's not, you know who you need to blame? The evil West. It's the evil West. Like, dude, they are begging you to take it.
Yeah.
They're begging you to take it. They're like, there are loopholes within the sanctions right now for food and medicine. And there are countries like lining up to like, hey, here's a medicine, and you're just not taking it. That happened with the Rona situation, right?
Yeah.
The vaccines were being offered to Iran, and the supreme leader came out and says, like, we're not going to take your dirty vaccines. About YouTube, that's not what I'm saying. We are
very pro.
We are very pro the vaccines, but this is like the supreme leader. The supreme leader came out and issued a semi fatwa. Well, I mean, it's not official. Like, he just said, like, we're not going to do that. And like, he himself is somebody who said that I'm not an expert. I appeal to experts. And this man, with not being an expert over vaccines, came out like, wow, we can't trust your vaccines. He says maybe these vaccines are made to specifically target the Iranian genes. Maybe and by banning those vaccines to come in, and again, this is how bad the country is. When he says something, it's above all law. Like, he's not an elected official, but when he says that, then the Congress can't do anything about it. The ministers can't do anything about it. The president can't do anything about it. That will become the thing that everybody has to do just because he said it. And they call themselves a democracy, right? So thousands and thousands of people have died in Iran just because this man thought that these vaccines are foreigners' way to try to, somehow target Iranians, and run experiments on them, right? This conspiracy theory. And they're like, oh, we have no medicine here because of sanctions. Bullcrap. It's because of you.
Yeah. Particularly evil and disgusting thing to do, where somebody is outright handing you life-saving medication and you refuse to take it specifically so that you can turn your people against a third party. Yeah. Particularly evil thing, in my opinion. So.
Yeah. It's very, and the guy, Khamenei, right? He's very prone to conspiracy theories, right? He literally thinks, and this is not a metaphor, okay, that Iran's enemies are working with demons, okay? Like, he said that on air, on TV, on Iran's national TV. And by demons, he doesn't mean like symbolic demons, like walking, talking demons. That America is like, they have, like, he imagines like the United States presidents sitting down on a table, and the other side there's a demon, and they are like colluding together against Iran. Yeah.
I don't know Why do you guys even talk about this stuff? What's the point? I don't know, because the leader of a country as a dictator is telling people that demons are a real thing. Like, I don't know why we talk about it. But Yeah.
All right. Okay, so let's go to the first Patreon question. Okay. What's the history of Iran with hostage executions? The Khwarezmian Shah executed the Mongol ambassadors. The Qajars did the same to the Russian czars. And most recently, the Iran government did it to Americans. Is it because the Spartans did the same to the Persians as depicted in 300s? I don't think that's because, I don't think it's because of that.
Yeah, I wouldn't put my money on that one. I mean, maybe there's one person still running around like, can you believe that? I mean, that was ridiculous. Fuck it. Thermopylae and all that. Like,
actually, I'm imagining like in 1979, the revolution in Iran, when they took the embassy, the U.S. embassy, right? Like when the hijabi woman came in and they took the American hostages as spy and something. I'm now imagining in my mind that this hijabi woman, like, this is because of the Spartans. This is for the Spartans.
Thought this was
The
Sparta, huh?
Yeah, imagine the American embassy workers their hands being tied out, like
Yeah, it was like,
Spartans because
I'm not even like,
because of Sparta.
my
Like,
family's
what?
not even Greek, man. My last name is Irish. Like,
Like, no, this is what you did to us. No, well, I mean, to answer, I just think because like Iran has been around for a very long, like Iran's, the Persian Empire has been around for a very long time, right? So you're gonna have, I mean, I'm pretty sure, without checking, if you go look at the history of Roman Empire, the Roman Empire or Roman empires, because we have multiple, right? You're gonna see hostages being executed because it's just like it was a long time, and it was a wide space. A lot of things happening. That will give you multiple examples of hostages being executed, right?
Yeah.
I'm pretty sure if you go look at Chinese ancient history, you're gonna find. Again, I don't know any of it, but I'm almost certain, given the length of the history we're talking about, you're gonna go find a whole bunch of hostages being executed in Chinese history, right? It's just like maybe I don't know which country you're from, but maybe Americans or Canadians are not used to this because they have very tiny history.
We babies. It's true. It's true.
Yeah, baby history. But yeah, that's what happens when your country has ancient history. You're gonna find multiple examples of everything.
Yeah. Any culture, any nation, any group of people with that amount of history. Absolutely. There's always going to be a bunch of different things like that. I would say, as terrible as some of the executions of hostages may have been in the past, I'm not as concerned about the ones that happened 500 years ago as I am about the ones that happened 5 days ago. Right. So obviously, there's history, but at the same time, like, let's move on from that history. Let's stop that crap.
Yeah. Okay. It is true that some countries, the people of some countries sometimes hold a grudge for hundreds and even thousands of years.
Sure.
This is not one of them. One grudge that is still held in Iran, if you want to look at history, it doesn't go back that far back, but it does go to the Arab invasion of Iran, right?
Okay. Yeah.
So a lot of people in Iran are still holding a grudge over that. However, that might be fake history. So we're now getting data that might be fake history, which will do, if it is fake history, it might mend Arab Persian relationships.
Let's hope it's fake.
Yeah. Okay, we got a super chat by Asian American. Thank you so much. I do not understand this question, but we will try to decipher it together. Okay. So, how does the Islamic Republic sell allyship with a pagan atheist PRC? Oh, now I understand. Okay. So, how do they tell people that? Why are they allies of China, the Chinese government, the Islamic Republic? It's as the main ideological priority when it comes to foreign relationship is not being Islamic. In fact, that might actually, in this day and age, that doesn't bring countries close together. That actually is driving countries away from each other, which I will explain. Like the Islam angle is not helpful. Okay, the main thing that is helpful that you have in common is being anti-West, especially being anti-American, right? Anti-Americanism is as a commonality that is more helpful to your political alliances than being Islamic. In fact, when it comes to Islam, Iran, the Islamic Republic, finds itself alone and against other Islamic countries, right? Especially Gulf Arab countries, right? So for many reasons, many people would think, oh, is it because they're Sunni and they're Shia? It used to be because of that, but now it's because Israel they have relationships with Israel and the West, and Iran doesn't, right? So even see, like, you can see the priority is who are your buddies and who are your enemies, right? So they could be Islamic. I mean, you're like, okay, well, they're Sunni and they're Shia. What about Azerbaijan, right? Like Azerbaijan is a very good example. Azerbaijan is not just an Islamic country; it's a Shia country. It's now an enemy of the Islamic Republic of Iran. You would think these countries should get along quite well, right? They have, they both have a lot of. One of them is Turkish. One of them has a lot of Turkish with right next to the border of Azerbaijan. That actually hurts. They're both Shia. They're both Islamic countries. They're both Shia. Even like, okay, why can't we get friends? Well, because Azerbaijan is close to Israel. It's allies of Israel, and Iran isn't. So that is more of a hindrance, you know. And the UAE, Saudi Arabia, and these are countries that are close to the United States and now Israel. So these makes them enemies. They make them enemies. So you can see where the priorities are. So China is a good ally because China is in competition with the United States. So if you, especially Iran, cannot afford not to be a close ally with China. If you're a country that has alienated so many other countries, that has been have been isolated economically and politically, China is a world superpower, right? Right? And when you have cut ties with other superpowers, you cannot afford to also lose China. You have to make China your buddy, like, or else you'll suffocate. There will be no more breathing room politically in the internet, both politically and economically when it comes to international relationships. What do you think?
Yeah, it's the I agree. It's the anti-West bent, I think, more than anything. On the actual like level of the people in government, I see it being a thing if, you know, some high up official is like, why are we, you know, buddy with China? I can see somebody, you know, another high up official saying something like, well, you know, because they're authoritarian like we are. But when it comes to the actual people, yeah, I see the message as being, well, you know, the U.S. is screwing us over. China is really sticking it to those Americans. Might as well be friends with them. So it makes the most sense, and that's why you see, you know, North Korea and China and Russia and Iran being buddies.
Right. Yeah. All right. Thanks for the super chat. Let's go to the next question. What do you think of Ronaldo going to? What do you think of Ronaldo going to Saudi Arabia and Saudis changing laws to legalize live-in relationships? What is that?
Like two people that aren't married but still living together. Yeah.
I didn't know about that. Do you know? Can you tell us what happened here? I don't know much about this.
I don't know much about it other than just reading kind of a quick little thing that said like, hey, Saudi Arabia is getting ready to do another one of those great liberalizing things that they've been doing. And there's like, I think this is another attempt by the government to, you know, make it look like they care, make it look like they're trying to do stuff. As far as Ronaldo going to Saudi Arabia, I will definitely say that's going to be very interesting. And we'll see how that ends up playing out, because obviously he's hugely popular, right? Like there are a lot of people that watch him, and I think he's like fairly like vocal about his Christianity. I could be wrong on that, but I thought in the past that he's been very vocal about that. So we'll see. We'll kind of see how that plays out. But as far as the changing of the law, I think that's the same thing. I think that's this part of the same playbook we've been seeing, right? They do some, they give a little bit and go, look how great we are, you know, we're so awesome. And it's like, you know, you're just doing that to maintain control.
So what happened? So Higgs Boson is clarifying in the live chat that Ronaldo is moving to Saudi Arabia because they paid
Right.
like they paid so much money to have him there, right? Like I think he's going to be part of it, the team or something. I don't understand. Like I don't know the details, right? But I know they paid a lot of money, right? So Ronaldo is moving to Saudi Arabia with his girlfriend, and apparently the Saudis have removed the laws that banned unmarried couples to live together. So specifically, they removed that law specifically so that Ronaldo could go and live in Saudi Arabia.
I mean,
That's amazing.
Like, tell me that you don't actually have morals, right? Without telling me that you don't actually have morals and principles, right? Like, the moment you're just like, oh, it's like, really, it's a big deal. Like, it's going to destroy the fabric of society. And then all of a sudden it's like, well, you know what? Actually, our favorite football player does it. So, maybe it's not that bad, right? Like, maybe it's not that big of a deal. I just think it's ridiculous. Honestly.
Oh, Susanna has a good point. Read this. Susanna saying, I saw someone comment, girl, if he's asking a traditional country to change their laws rather than marry you.
Oh my God. Imagine what that was probably like him sitting there, negotiating with these Saudi businessmen, and, his girlfriend sitting right next to him. And they're like, yeah. And are y'all married? Or cause we kind of have this thing. You're not allowed to like live together if you're not married. And Ronaldo's like, no, we're not. But, do you think you could change that? Like, imagine what was going through her mind in that moment. Like,
we could just get married, right?
Like, we could, right? Like, we could just, like, back home, we could just get married, and then it wouldn't be it's like, no, it's not a problem. They'll just change the law. It's no big deal. No big deal.
They changed the law of the entire country.
Oh my God. Yeah, I know, right? I mean, look, hey, if you don't want to get married, don't get married. Not pushing that on people or anything. But I do think that's one of those like red flag moments. I do think that's one of those moments where you're just like, man, we're about to travel quite a long distance, set up.
How I would do it? You know how I would do it if I was trying to convince her not to get married because of this? Like, I would like, listen, babe, we're freeing a country. Right? Like, if we get married, then they don't have to change this law. But if they change this law, this is beyond just you and me. You know how many more people will now be able to live together without getting married because of me and you? So we owe it. We owe it to these people. So this is our responsibility.
What you're saying is, he looked at his girlfriend and said, baby, I want to marry you, but I just care about human rights so much more.
So much, yeah. Okay. Well, I mean, that's a good point, actually, now that I think about it. Yeah. Like, if we get married, you know how many people, like, this is our chance to change the law of a country. I think that's how I saw it. Like, we can't be selfish. This is not just about you and me. Yeah.
Do we celebrate progress in human society when it's done for purposes like that? Do we accept this as like a victory? It's like, you know what? Okay, like that is good progress, but also that kind of maybe isn't the best relationship. Whatever.
Susanna is saying, nah, it's probably just an exception. I can't expect more than this, only applying to foreigners. I don't know. I would think like a lot of, I mean, Saudi citizens, do have a lot more, I don't know, like, I do think like they would be like pissed and not accept. I mean, Saudi is going in the direction of removing a lot of like social limiting laws that limits social life, right? Mm-hmm. So given how fast they're moving in direction, I mean, they just had Halloween. Like, they're getting full on shirky. Like, they're getting full on shirky. If they're getting this shirky, like, do you think a marriage law would like sending her away? They're touching the most taboo of all taboos. They're like officially came out and recently like, normalizations of relationship with Israel is going to happen at some point. Like, did you just say that out loud? Like, I was like, wow, you just said that out loud. That there's the land of the prophet, the land of the two holy cities, right? The people who are the custodians of the grave of the man who said that non-Muslims, especially Jews, will never enter this land, is now saying like, we're gonna have normal, we're gonna have normal relationships with Israel at some point. So I mean, if that is not a red line anymore, I mean, marriage laws, I think, like, yeah. I mean, they said, like, in the cities that they're building, they're going to have places where foreigners can drink alcohol, right? I
Yeah.
mean, that would be exception for foreigners, so that's true as well.
Yeah.
That goes in line with what Susanna saying. But again, I don't know.
Yeah.
I'm not saying Susanna might be right, but I'm just saying I wouldn't be surprised if it was, like, just like whatever.
Yeah, I think it's one of those things that we keep an eye on, and we watch and see what the ultimate application is of it. But yeah, I mean, it's football, so it's kind of like, I get it, you know? It's like, there's that back and forth, like, do I care more about football or, you know, like eternal punishment and fire and stuff? And I'll be honest, it depends on the day of the week for me and who's playing. So
that's good. All right, next question. Next patron question saying, apparently Khamenei tweeted about gender pay gap in the US. Wow. And it wasn't parody. No, it wasn't. What's the deal with Iran regime talking about problems in the US? It's just the world's biggest running whataboutism. Mm-hmm. Okay. I think, yeah, this is the main go-to fallacy of Iranian officials whenever you highlight problems in Iran, is like, look at these, look at Americans. Yeah. Like, it's not just that. So Khamenei is like coming out like, oh, the people who are the protesters who want freedom, right? Like, there are a few who are agents of the West. They want freedom, like Western style freedom. But go look at the West. Go look at how horrible it is. Go look at how many women in the West are being RAPE'd. Like, and they say they love, one thing they like to mention, Khamenei likes to mention, is the Me Too. Like, look at what happened with Me Too. Look at how much women in the West are being molested or RAPE'd and all of that. And the people who are in the streets that want freedom, that what you want? You want us to be like the West? And people are like, yeah, we do want to be like the West, more like the West. But I mean, this is such a stupid. And they say like, look at the West. The women are getting paid less than men. Should I even mention this?
No, dude, do it, because I think your thoughts is exactly where mine are, which is like, that's a really strange point for him to bring up, right? Like,
yeah, because there's a gender pay gap in Iran, guys.
That's worse.
Yeah, that is much worse. Like, he like, oh, they say like Americans are like, oh, treat your woman better. What about your gender pay gap? I'm like, well, their gender pay gap is lower than your gender pay gap. Yeah, like, you have a higher gender pay gap.
Yeah, it was like, of all the things you could have pointed out, that was one that was really a bad. It's like, oh, okay, yeah, let me go look at that gender pay gap. Wow, it does look bad in the US. Let's go look at Iran. Oh, it's worse. Like, yeah,
but like, people are not like, if you look at the media, when they cover it, it's just his points are so stupid that people are not like even shocked by it. Like, it used to be like, oh my God, he said this, and now people are like, he mentioned the gender pay gap. We have to tell you that the gender pay gap is higher in Iran. Like, that's that's how the media covers that. Like, the Iranian media outside of Iran, of course, covers it. Like, of course, it's higher in Iran. Like, of course, it's higher in Iran, right? And also, the thing that they rely on, like, so this is one Khamenei speech that was a long speech about that he addressed to a lot of conservative women, right? Showing, like, Khamenei trying to show how women rights in Iran is donkey dory and everything, right? Sure. And how the West is bad, right? So a couple of other points that he mentioned was that, like, the RAPE in other countries, the reason why it looks like they have higher, Western countries have higher molestations and RAPE is because there's better reporting mechanisms, right, than Iran. It's not because it's higher there. It's because they don't see them in Iran, because there's no good way of report. Like, nobody is a lot of people don't even file a complaint, right? Because it's like, you could get into trouble yourself if you admit to such, relationships, right? So a lot of it goes unreported. A lot of it is not even considered RAPE. For example, in Iran, if a husband has sexual relationship with his wife without her consent, which is forced, because it's the wife in Iran that does not count as RAPE because it's his right. In other countries, it is counted as that. So that significantly changes the numbers between Iran and other countries. And they keep talking about the Me Too movement. Honestly, Iran needs a Me Too movement, right? They're like, oh, look at them. Everything is so bad. Look at the Me Too movement. Look at all these men doing horrible things. Well, at least they have that movement. At least there's a pushback. In Iran, it's happening, and there's no pushback. Like the pushback is not there. I mean, there is a Me Too movement in Iran, but it's not. It can be as open and as aggressive because, like for example, when women come out and file complaints about like workplace harassment, they are isolated, they're targeted, they're made to suffer in such much more successful ways than in Western countries. In a way that a lot of women think like it's not worth. Like if you are harassed in workplace, a lot of women see what happened to other women who complain, and they're like they just tell themselves just take it because there's nothing you can do, right? Yeah. So there's that. There's he also, by the way, the whole fact that he had this speech talking to women about women in Islam and in Iran is an admission that the protests are having a influence. Because if it makes somebody like Khamenei come out and give a speech like that, it means that you guys are feeling pressured. He also kept on mentioning about women in Islam, right? Like speaking about stories in the Quran about women. He mentioned Pharaoh's wife as an example, which is weird. He also cried about him. Like, well, not cried about him, but like he looked very upset. He was like almost like
he got choked up about it.
He choked out about it a little bit. Like, yeah. And
I mean, I'm not shaming him for having emotions. That's fine. Show your emotions and all, but it's just like, okay, weird choice. But
it's a weird choice because we're like, you have never felt like that for any of the women who were killed, in Iranian women who were killed.
Yeah.
Right. And you're feeling like that about this ancient dude that's not Iranian. Like, you are actively killing Iranian women, and you're choked up about like a woman in the Quran, a story of a woman in the Quran. Yep. So that's great. Yeah. Yep.
Bit of a misplaced compassion there. But yeah, like you said, it's the standard tried and true whataboutism that happens all over the world. Anytime the United States makes some declaration about atrocities in China, the first thing the CCP says is, look at all of this, that's going on in the U.S. So
yeah. All right. Next question. The Congress. I don't know. Oh, yeah. Is this about Brazil? Oh, yeah. The Congress, Presidential Mansion, and Supreme Court of Brazil were stormed by Bolsonaro supporters. Bolsonaro followed Trump's playbook, denied the legitimate transfer of power, and has fled to Florida. Even though Trump is out of power, what are your thoughts on precedent he has set for the world? Thoughts on the language of terrorists? I don't want to read this. I think
insurrectionist.
No. Is this the name of a? Oh no. Language of terrorists, insurrectionists, or rioters. Yeah. What do you mean? What does that mean?
So, I mean, those are words that have been used by various people describing that. Describing the situation, calling them as rioters, insurrectionists, terrorists, that type of stuff. So this definitely was. So Bolsonaro actually was in Florida, which is surprising, which is super weird. But he was, and one of the reasons is because he has been very vocal about the fact that he is a huge fan of Donald Trump, and there are upper level members of his cabinet that have told us that Bolsonaro was investigating very, very intently and very, very focused on watching what happened on January 6th and figuring out why it was unsuccessful. So we have a lot of reports of that coming out now from a handful of different credible places. So he very much was using that as part of his playbook in terms of the precedent, that is definitely something that is true. I have a handful of friends that are based in various Latin American countries, and a lot of the times they do express to me how many of the average people in their area, they look to the United States for how things are done and what things are done. And when the line is pushed just a little bit further, they feel justified because they say, look at the United States, everybody always tells us we're supposed to look up to them, so here's what they did. I think I'd like to compare this to what happened in Peru recently, and talk about why I think that's an important comparison, because what happened in Peru, that individuals have used the term coup or insurrection, is nothing like what happened in Brazil, and it's nothing like what happened on January 6th. What happened in Peru were not diplomatic, but executive and legislative, changes that were trying to be instituted. We can argue about whether those are right or wrong, but there wasn't an armed militia of individuals literally storming government buildings. But we do have that in Brazil. We did have that in the United States on January 6th. And I think we need to be careful about what we label these things as. Was it an attempt to overthrow power in Peru? Sure, fine. Was it an insurrection? No. That's what happened in Brazil. That's what happened in the United States. So I will say that, and I'll shut up here, but I will say it's been fascinating to me how quick they have been able to arrest individuals and bring charges. Of course, I think everybody deserves their day in court, innocent until proven guilty. So I'm not going to make any profound statements just yet on all the individuals. But yeah, I think just like what happened with the January 6th individuals that were arrested, if the evidence is overwhelming, we can prove it beyond a shadow of a doubt in court. Again, innocent till proven guilty. Yeah, what they did is a crime. What they did is undermining democracy, whether it's in Brazil, whether it's in the United States, whether it's anywhere. But yeah,
that was pretty good. Do you think I do think that all of these failing is a good precedent as well.
Huge. Yeah. And that's why I think it's great that there has been such a strong response from Lula, from his cabinet. Again, say whatever you want about the Workers' Party, say whatever you want about Lula and all of the policies and stuff. No problem there. But I do think it's been good that there has been a swift rebuke of this by a lot of different individuals. There has been, charges where there have been charges. D asked, were there casualties in Brazil? I believe, yes, there were. I'm not positive off the top of my head what those numbers are, but I do believe, yes, there were a few. But yeah, I would agree with you again, Armin, and just say that, yeah, the fact that these did not occur, the fact that, these things have happened and they were stopped, and we have had a strong, a strong response to them in saying, hey, this is not okay, this is not cool. That is a good precedent. And I hope that's the precedent that we remember throughout history, and not the precedent of trying to overthrow a democratically elected government with violence. So that's my hope.
All right, next question. Thoughts on the unaliving of Judge Salavati?
Yeah.
Okay, that did not have that. Okay, that hasn't been confirmed. By the way, for people who don't know, unaliving is code for KILL, because we're writing it like that so that we could make YouTube not hate us. So let me read the question. Thoughts on the unaliving of Judge Salavati? When, if ever, is unaliving people in government okay? Can this be compared with American revolutionaries tarring and fettering tax collectors? Well, I mean, I don't think I could discuss when it's okay, because that could get us in real trouble right now on YouTube.
Sure.
Okay. So yeah, I'm not gonna even touch that with a 10-foot pole, right? Yeah. But regarding Judge Salavati, that has not been confirmed, and I think that might be fake news.
Yeah, I tried to look a little bit. I didn't have a bunch of time to do a whole
So
bunch of research, but I couldn't find anything specifically on that. So
I did. I mean, I have been following the news in Iran, and
yeah.
there's drama behind this. Okay, so by the way, for
Mm.
people who don't know, Judge Talavati is one of the main judges that is passing out death sentences to Iranian protesters, right? So a lot of people hate this guy with a lot of passion. Let me see. This is the guy that has passed down long, many years of prison sentence and a lot of death sentences to a lot of people that we even know, right? So this is and a lot of people who have been executed so far is because of this guy's death sentences that he's passing out, right? So that's why there's a lot of hate for him. And there was a conspiracy about there was an announcement that they found him, and they went boom boom, and now he's not alive anymore, right? Like the Iranian protesters, Iranian people have managed to get him when he was like going to his home, parking his car, getting out of his car, like the few seconds that he had to get from his car to his house. They say that's where they got him, and there was like mass celebrations on Iranian social media over this mass celebration, right? But then it came out that this is like might be fake news, okay? And now, until now, there's a fight between anti-regime people online about whether this is fake news or real news, right?
Mm.
Um,
Mm.
I don't know what's happening here, but we do know that the Islamic Republic, the government, has a history of spreading fake news against itself. This is one of the tactics that the government of Iran has, that it spreads fake news against itself on social media, trying to get it for BBC Persian or Iran and International or Voice of America Farsi or Radio Farda to cover it, right? So these are all Iranian media outside of Iran, and they are trying to make it so, like they hope that it spreads on social media, but the best price for them is for Iran International or one of these medias that are very much that are hurting the Islamic Republic, one of them to cover it, so that when it comes out that this was fake news, their legitimacy drops,
Mm.
right? So they're trying to feed them fake news that a lot of people are excited about, right? And also like fake news like this, when if it spreads all over the social media and then it comes out that it's fake, it it crushes a lot of people's hopes, and it also reduces um their trust in each other, right? So there are a lot of people on social media that are anti the government, and now because of this news they're fighting with each other. And if it comes out that this was fake news, they're going to hate each other, like, oh, you spread fake news, now we can't trust you, and they lose the trust in each other, and that's what the government wants, right? And again, this is not a conspiracy. We have literal documents, leaked documents, that this is one of the part of their playbook. And we have people from the regime that used to be with the regime and not with the regime now. They're saying like, yes, this is their propaganda tactic. This has been confirmed, right? We even know many famous Twitter handles, right? Like there are Twitter handles that are famous, like they managed to become celebrities against the regime. And now we know that this was actually from the regime, right? So
Crazy.
so imagine like following a Twitter account thinking like, oh my god, this is such a good Twitter account against the regime. Like we have Twitter accounts that spread like swear against Khamenei, like have the worst things to say against Khamenei, and they actually spread a lot of good information against the regime, and they even collaborate and come up with plans for people to come protest. They announce people when the protests are, go into the street, tell people, and they have a lot of followers. But they like build this it's the government itself trying to build all these followers for one day, with all the trust that it has, to all of a sudden use it for a tactic like this, right? It's literally Fed posting. It's Fed posting, like what
Amazing.
Americans call Fed posting, right?
That's
And
incredible.
yeah, and this is another thing interesting. Security. There was one of the people who manages these Twitter accounts has recently come out and publicly says what his job was, right? And the reason why he was so pissed is because one of his best Twitter accounts, right? One of the best Twitter accounts that their team has. Like, oh, that Twitter account, they had the best anti-regime tweets. And this guy was working with the regime. Like, oh, they were like, the things that we posted was genius. Was like grade A anti-regime material, right? And these are with regime people, okay? All right? And he was like, the reason why he was pissed is because one of the women that they had arrested, okay, they had pinned that Twitter account to her. Like what? Like her.
He didn't get credit for it.
Yeah, was that like that's my Twitter account? That was I managed that Twitter account.
Oh, my heart breaks for him.
No, but this is what they say. Not only they use them as a way to like spread fake news, they also put it as crimes for people who they want, like if they want to fill your case with crimes that you haven't committed. Like let's say you have arrested somebody and they don't have enough to give you the years that they want you. They say like, oh, you manage this Twitter account, and you're like, that's not my Twitter account. Like, we have reason to think that this was your Twitter account. And this guy was like, this guy is not coming out publicly and announcing that is my Twitter account. It's crazy.
That's so. Yeah, I really, I gotta be honest. That's just so ridiculous. Just like this guy really just genuinely wanted the credit for it, and oh my gosh, man, working so damn hard just to be a terrible person and stuff. Like, weird, but yeah, I mean, I guess it's cool that we know that. I mean, I guess it's cool that they've come out and said stuff.
But now the flip side of that is that now every time, like, people just don't trust each other.
It's hard to know. Yeah.
Every time you say something that thinks us, like, you're with the, like, you have no idea how many times I've been accused of being with the regime.
Yeah.
Because of things they say that they don't agree with. Like, so it's just like, it's hard. It's hard. It's difficult to do anything for. Yeah. All right, so let's go to the next question. Wait, we have a comment here. Oh. Wait, I'm going to answer. Doorknobhead is asking, I come in and the first thing I see are hosts laughing, which prompts the obvious question. Why are atheists so sad and depressed? Are atheists sad and depressed? I don't know. Are they?
I mean, I guess sometimes. But I can definitely say after reading a good handful of Doorknobhead's comments over the years, we definitely have a good sense of humor.
Yeah, we do.
There's always some good quips and whatnot. But yeah, with that God-shaped hole in my heart, not only am I not getting enough blood to my extremities, but also, just sadness every so often. It's like I really want to eat the cracker once a month thing. So
yeah. Oh, this is funny. Susanna saying, this is true, actually. All right. Wow. Well, actually, I'll give it. So Armin was accused of being with the regime by his own co-host. Wow. Well, my co-host at one point, like one of my co-hosts throughout the Atheist Republic Persian, she one time mentioned that the jury is still out with me.
Oh.
Whether or not I am with the regime or not.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Oh, I mean,
yeah.
I don't know. I mean, maybe
that's a level of paranoia. I mean, it's justified though. Like, I mean,
I get it.
You might think crazy. You might think these people are crazy, but you have no idea the people that have then realized that, oh my God, this guy was with the regime, right?
Well, right, when they're going through that level of effort,
Yeah, and these are people in Iran, right? So their safety is on the line, right? So they might be working with somebody, trusting them, giving them information, and that might lead to their arrest and execution at some point. So this level of paranoia, it makes sense why people would have it, right?
I will say though, if at this point, you come out and are like, haha, fooled ya, I've been working for the regime the whole time, that'd be like probably the biggest like fake out in history, man. I mean, that's a pretty big deal. Like you created a whole organization and have consulates in countries and stuff. So it's a pretty deep cover, but
yeah. Oh, this is an interesting thing. Are VPNs legal in Iran? No, but the regime sells them.
What?
Yeah.
What?
So the regime bans VPNs, and parts of the regime makes money from selling it. So there's that. There's a lot of people who are making money off of it. So there's that.
Why would they do that? What would be
Because
the?
there's a lot. Because there's a lot
Because
of
there's
money
money
from
to
it.
be made. Okay,
Yeah,
sure.
yeah.
Huh. That's
Because they
so
make
weird.
money. They make good money from the fact that they made it illegal. They have monopolized the market.
Sure.
But
No,
yeah,
yeah.
but that's why a lot of people say, like, other tell Iranians don't use Iranian VPNs, like, because they're cheap and they're free, right? Well, I mean, they make a lot of ad money and shit like that,
Yeah.
but they if it's government VPN, a lot of people don't trust them.
Yeah.
A
I
lot
could
of
see
people are
that.
like, oh, this is a government VPN. Like, don't use this as a government VPN because they might have your information. Anyway, so a lot of Iranians outside of Iran buy their friends and family in Iran VPN accounts, right? Like, they keep buying Nord or this or that, or now they're coming up with new ways. But every time, yeah, it's crazy. The whole VPN thing in Iran is like major business. There was even a comedy cartoon that Iranians made. Like, this was actually a few years ago, right? About where the direction of the internet is going in Iran. There was a really funny cartoon. I should find it and show it to you. The guy is in his house, and the guy comes in, like, it's like looks like a drug smuggler. Like, opens the bag and, like, so I came across the border. I printed the latest popular tweets. Right?
Oh my
So,
gosh. Oh my
so
gosh.
and the guy is like, and then, like, if you want to leave a comment, like, over Rihanna's tweet, let's just write it down here. We go and leave the comments for you.
I like the thought
Like, right.
of a GIF being a little flip book, you know? It's like,
Yeah.
oh, the puppy jumps. Oh, that's adorable.
Yeah, and it's the video is quite long. It's really funny. It's like, here the latest traffic highlights. So, like, he's like, but that's from 8 days ago. And, like, yeah, but at least you know why you were late. 8 days ago.
That's good. Oh my gosh, that's terrible.
It's such a good. I can't do it justice, but it was a good one. It was a good one. All right, let's go. So this comes with an article that I need to share. Right, hold on. Let me get the article as well. Share screen. All right. So, question is: imminent civil war. Your thoughts? So this is about Israel. Is this the link that came with this question? Let me just make double sure.
I think so.
Yes. So yeah, it is. So the title of this article says, left-wing Israelis take to the streets as new government presses right-wing agenda further. So this is happening in Israel. Should I read this? Yeah, I could read this really quickly. Yeah,
at least some parts.
As Israel's new right-wing government continued to signal that it would push through measures to cripple the judiciary and clamp down on public dissent and news operations, thousands of citizens took to the streets in protest, and one prominent opposition figure warned of imminent civil war. This might be an exaggeration, but I do think that democracy. I mean, if there's no without even civil war, I do think secularism and democracy is at its worst right now in Israel. We are losing Israel. Like, if things keep going that way, unless, like, Israeli left-leaning people have been very weak in politics, and this is partly their fault. Okay, but because of not mobilizing, not being politically active. A reported 10,000 demonstrators gathered Saturday night in Tel Aviv. I mean, now they're active. Good job with you guys, but this was needed a long time ago. A reported 10,000 demonstrators gathered Saturday night in Tel Aviv to protest against Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu's new right-wing government, which contains several ministers who are openly hostile to Arabs and Palestinians, LGBT people, liberal forms of, what is this? Oh, Jewry. Okay.
It's a very odd term in my opinion, but I have
Yeah.
seen it once or twice. But yeah.
Wouldn't it be better to say like
Judaism,
wait,
like liberal
what is
forms of Judaism or liberal forms of Jewish cultural. Yeah, I think that's probably a better
this?
term. But
I've not
Jewry,
seen liberal
yeah,
forms of Jewry.
yeah,
That's a weird word.
yeah. I agree.
Yeah.
I wouldn't
Yeah.
say it, but you
Okay.
know.
Yeah. Organizers. Yeah. So liberalism is being attacked in Israel. Thank you very much, Netanyahu. Organizers, many of whom hailed from Israel. By the way, this is going to make it difficult even for Arab countries to continue the Abrahamic Accord and stuff. Like this is, but they're going to still go ahead with it. But it just like makes it even more awkward than it was before, right?
Yeah.
Organizers, many of whom hailed from Israel, left-wing groups, advertised the demonstration as against the coup d'état. Oh, they're describing it as a coup d'état carried out by the criminal government, which threatens to harm all citizens, whoever they are, according to the Times of Israel. Many of them directed their ire towards the proposed legislation that would allow the Knesset, Israeli's parliament, to overrule decisions by the Supreme Court. Some carried signs comparing Netanyahu and his coalitions to NAZIS, you know. Others, so I'm not going to read this. Others, because YouTube. Others use the rallying cry "Crime Minister," referring to Netanyahu's ongoing corruption trial.
That's kind of good. I give him credit for that.
Minister.
Instead of prime minister, crime minister.
Crime Minister.
Yeah, that's kind of clever.
Oh, counter protesters were present as well. At least one Netanyahu lawmaker who attended the protest, the Israeli Arab Knesset head of the Israeli. Oh wow. At least one anti-Netanyahu lawmaker who attended the protest, the Israeli Arab Knesset head of the Hadash Tal party, Ayman Odeh, was assaulted according to video of the event, and police are investigating. Netanyahu and his allies decried the protest with the prime minister condemning the NAZI comparisons and displays of the Palestinian flag. Wow, some of these leftists had the no, I think this is like, yeah, I think they found one Palestinian flags and they just want to focus on that. Look at this. These are liberals, okay? These are our fellow liberals. Look at the LGBT flags. That's the main thing that you need to highlight here. Okay. This is wild incitement that went uncondemned by the opposition or the mainstream media. He tweeted on Sunday, "I demand that everyone stop this immediately." Another protest was set for Thursday, this time by attorneys who are planning a walkout to register disapproval of the proposed judiciary changes. Yeah, the judiciary changes is significant right now.
Yeah,
but government ministers have offered no indication that they are considering the views of Israel's left, instead pressing forward with a raft of right-wing proposals in recent days. These are the proposals. I don't know if you guys want me to read it, but
yeah, I mean, so over the last few years, the Knesset has changed hands a couple of times, right? There's been so many different instances of them not being able to actually form a coalition that governs. There seems to be very much this polarization right now in Israel. Is this going to outright lead to an actual civil war? I don't know that I believe that just yet. I think these are very worrying things, especially, I mean, like you had highlighted about the judiciary. Yeah, that just completely destroys what the judiciary is even for. If Parliament can just overrule any of the Supreme Court decisions, basically, right? I mean, you have to have checks and balances, but it can't just be like that, because then there's no point of having a Supreme Court. I think the rhetoric of civil war is something you see from a lot of the firebrand politicians worldwide, and we do that in the U.S. a lot. still think there are things that are worrisome, for sure. Do I think it's going to result in actual, sides and picking up weapons and fighting each other? I'm not convinced of that just yet. But I am definitely convinced that there are some worrying trends. This is a fairly far right government that has said some pretty openly bad things already. People in high up positions, because they had to appease the coalition, so they gave a lot of these further right politicians, some higher up governmental positions. So, yeah, I'm not convinced that we are going to be seeing, um, militias and armed groups in the streets just yet, but it's definitely worrisome, and the changes for the laws is a huge problem.
Yeah, the only thing we know is things are moving in a bad direction in Israel.
Correct.
Very fast. And given the history that Israel has and all the background of that, it already, like, we have a lot of religious tensions, a lot of ethnic tensions, and now political instability and a shift to the right is bad for most countries, but for Israel it's going to be extra destructive because of um, all the potential things that could happen. Like, in a country where there's racial tensions and religious tensions and terrorist activity, right? Having the government itself shift so heavily to the right, and fighting secularism, fighting liberalism, fighting democracy, fighting LGBT rights, fighting ethnic minority rights, all of that is going to get a reaction, a very strong reaction, a very dangerous reaction, which is going to start a chain reaction that is going to escalate things further and further, right?
Yeah.
Like, this is the last thing Israel needs right now. So yeah. So there's
not a good trend. Yeah, I hope that the humanist and the left leaning people in Israel organize a little better and vote. So
yeah, I do. One thing Israel needs right now is a heavy dose of atheist activism. That's what it needs right now. And I really wish that Atheist Republic had an affiliate in Israel, like we were, because I think that would have, like, we are in Canada and United States. One of my dreams was for Atheist Republic to also have an affiliate in Israel. I think we would have been able to mobilize quite a
if
few
you
people.
are watching this video right now and you're thinking, hey, I'm an Israeli citizen and I'm an atheist and I love Atheist Republic, why not contact and help Armin's dream come true? That'd make him very happy. Like, don't you want to do that? I mean, come on. What kind of bad person are you? Doesn't want to make Armin happy?
No, yeah, guys. If you guys have experience with management and stuff, we do want to. If somebody wants to, pick the brand of Atheist Republic, and start an organization in Israel with the Atheist Republic branding, then contact us. Contact Susanna. Susanna at atheistrepublic.com, and we could talk. We could see what we could do. Yeah. So it will be your management, our media support, and our branding. Our connection to other atheist activists around the world, and we could we could do a collaborative work together, right? So. Yeah. Do you think if protests continue in Israel, how do you see Israel government dealing with them? I mean, they don't do as heavy of a crackdown as they do with because these are Jewish citizens.
Right.
They would have they might react differently if they were Arab citizens.
Yep.
Right.
Yep.
Again. Yeah. So in Israel we have a 2-tier citizenship system. Okay. In effect, it's not about being Palestinian or Israeli. It's about being now it's getting closer and closer to being about whether you're Jewish or Arab, right? Even if you have an Israeli citizenship. So I do think that, I mean, a heavy crackdown on Jewish citizens is less likely in Israel. But I don't know what's going to happen. Maybe things change in the future. But I mean, 10,000 protesters. I mean, that's a significant number, especially for Israel's population, right? So
Yes.
it is something to. But yeah, I don't know how they will react. Maybe like just ignoring them.
I think
know,
I think the guy who's in the minister position where he's like head of the police or something, I think that guy is particularly far right. But even still, I think you're right. The as gross as it is to say, this would be a totally different story if these weren't Jewish Israeli citizens, right? So
I think, actually, now that I think about it, one thing they could do is to have their counter protests try to get that number higher. You know what I mean? So to show some legitimacy and to show that these liberal leftist protesters do not represent the wish of the people, what they do is to just bring out their right-leaning pro-Netanyahu or ultra-Orthodox Judaism, just like fill the streets with those people, right? Just our culture is at a threat. The enemies from within are going to eat God's land from within. So come out and defend yourself and just like fill the streets with like right-leaning protesters. So that might be that. Yeah. So what is this? I don't understand this question. How to spot red herrings? Oh, red herrings in fitness advice. My feed is being bombarded with a guy saying you don't need cardio to lose weight and you can lose weight even if you eat pizzas regularly. Well, technically this is true. This is true. However, it's not good advice, even if it's true. Okay? Cardio is not the best way of losing weight. It helps with losing weight, but it's very insignificant to losing weight when you compare it to what you're eating, right? If you're trying to lose weight, what you eat is more important than doing cardio. However, telling people not to do cardio is really bad advice because you do cardio not necessarily for losing weight. Cardio improves all your health markers. Like cardio is so beneficial to you that telling people that you don't need telling people you don't need to do cardio to lose weight is true, but irresponsible because you need cardio for many other things. Okay, you need cardio for good heart health, lung health, blood flow, better immune system, better sleep, longevity, everything. Okay, so nobody should just say you don't need cardio in a vacuum, because if you just ended there, it sounds like you're telling people that they don't need cardio. Okay, so it's an irresponsible phrasing of it. But yeah, it's true that you don't need cardio for losing weight. Okay, and also saying, and you can lose weight even if you eat pizzas regularly. True. Yes, it's true, but it's a lot more difficult. Okay, because at the end of the day, again, this is also true, but in a responsible way of phrasing it. Okay, because at the end of the day, losing weight is about being in a calorie deficit. Okay, you could eat pizzas every day and lose weight if the calories that add up from you eating pizza, like imagine if I just eat nothing but one slice of pizza every day. Okay, I would lose a lot of weight.
Probably.
Yeah, because a slice of pizza, how many calories are there in a slice of pizza? Yeah. I don't know, like 500.
Not enough for that being the only thing you're eting.
if that's the only thing I'm eating, I'm going to be I'm going to look like a skeleton. Like I'm going to be
starving.
I'm going to be starving, right? So yeah, technically you could eat nothing but pizzas, but it's just such a low amount of pizza every day that the calories don't add up to the calories that you're burning every day, and you're going to lose a lot of weight. Okay. I mean, that you shouldn't do that. That's very unhealthy. Okay. The problem, so yes, it's right. It's true. As long as the calories that you're burning is higher than the calories you're taking in, you could be eating candies every day and you still will be losing weight. As long as you eat little candies, like not much candies, right?
Technically.
But for somebody who's losing weight, it's difficult to lose weight and eat candies or pizza, okay?
Mm-hmm.
Because they're not filling and they're filled with calories, right? So it's possible, but it's difficult and it's not the healthiest way of losing weight.
Yeah.
So true, but you need to provide the full context of what you're saying.
And I would say so. I've been lucky enough that a really really close friend of mine, student Dr. Ben, he's almost at the end of his medical boards and everything. Like he's in his final year. He has a YouTube channel, Student Dr. Ben, and where he debunks a lot of this stuff and he brings a doctor's perspective to it and everything. He's awesome. Has talked a lot about the health and fitness stuff. There are a couple of not hard and fast always rules, but a couple of good things to pay attention to that he's talked about a lot. One of the things that's really important to pay attention to is whether or not the medical advice, the health advice, is extremely broad as to basically say this applies to everybody. That's one of the number one things you learn about in medicine, is that no, it just doesn't. No, it just doesn't. No, it just doesn't. That's just not how stuff works. The keto diet is not a good diet for every single person on the earth. There are certain people that meet certain criteria based on their body chemistry specifically and their lifestyle that it is successful for. But if you're looking at health information where it's saying, just, hey, blatant across the board, this works every single time for every single person, no difference. Again, that's a moment to just get that flag up, to get that skepticism up. Not always the case. Like, for instance, it is true that in general, drinking water is good for you, right? But at the same time, there's a difference in those kind of claims, right? About the eating pizza and not needing cardio and drinking water. So that if it's just this super broad thing that applies to everybody and isn't specific. And the other thing, and this was a really, really big one that's helped me, is go through the claim. Go look, especially if it's like an article or a website. If you see on that website, on that article, at the end of that advertisement, specifically that disclaimer of this is not to be used for medical advice. This is for like entertainment purposes only. This is for spiritual health only, that type of stuff. The reason they are doing that is because they know those medical claims will not hold up in court and they will be found liable under the law for providing false medical information. Again, not 100% hard and fast on either of those, but those are two good markers that you can use to go ahead and start debunking some of that medical BS that's out there.
Yeah, so Higgs boson is saying my main question regarding that is how to spot someone who might be misleading you, right?
Yeah.
So if they are not providing you with arguments that contradicts what they're saying, you know what I mean? That's a good red flag, right? So for example, I say like, well, I believe this, but people who are against this opinions, this is the argument that they have.
Yeah.
Okay.
Sure.
And this is why I think they're wrong, right? Usually that increases the level of trust I have with somebody, especially if I see that they're trying to steelman their opposition, right? So if you, like, for example, what you have to do is when you're like gathering information, to not get it from one source, like get it from a diverse a lot of sources. And I know it's difficult, but sometimes you have to go to check the source material, right? Like somebody saying so and so study said this, right? Sometimes, like I know people don't have time and you want to apply Occam's razor to just looking at what everything is saying and like, well, this is an expert and they all seem to be agreeing upon this. So I will just trust them. But at some point, there's once or twice to at least to gain respect, to accept someone's credibility, sometimes checking the actual research is a good. You don't have to do it all the time, just so that you could see, okay, this guy seems to be actually citing real studies, right? And knows how to interpret the studies, right? But especially it's really good if a person you're speaking to is involved, they themselves have been involved in peer-reviewed research, and they have published research, right?
Yeah.
So for example, one channel that I like when it comes to stuff like this, right, is, I forgot what it's called, BioLane, Lane, is that what is that called? Yes, BioLane, BioLayne, right? So this is a guy that does health advice, but he's not just interpreting research. This is a person that has been involved in publishing academic research. So not only when he reviews research, he does that with as someone who has a knowledge of what makes a good research paper, right? And he critiques it with that lens. So that's that experience in academia or in publishing research makes me trust somebody a lot more, right? But again, just steelmanning your opposition and also providing alternative viewpoints that contradicts to yours shows me that you're trying your damn best to not to portray just one side of things. So for example, if somebody is saying diet A just works, and they just go and handpick data and research that only is in favor of what they're saying, and you can see like, hey, I've seen research that contradicts what you're saying, and you don't even bring it up, to me saying like, okay, you're not actually trying to educate me, you have an agenda, and you're handpicking things that supports your point. And that for me is a major red flag, when you even don't address the contradictory data that is out there.
Absolutely. And you brought up a really good point about go to a plurality of sources. I think that's one thing that I always try to do on that stuff, especially when it's medical claims like that. Like whether or not, I don't know, like a claim about this ink pen isn't necessarily as important as to this thing that I'm about to put in my body, whether or not it's poison, right? So definitely go look at a few sources. Again, just a little quick thing that I've noticed is pretty much every one of the medical scams I have ever come across in my life. And again, my buddy Ben, has mentioned this too. There's a phrase that they all like to use, which is this, insert whatever their solution is. This treats the cause, not just the symptoms, because that's a standard phrase that people like to throw around to bash the medical establishment, when, that's how you do medicine. That is just how you do medicine. You have to use the symptoms to try to get at what the cause is. So,
Right.
but yeah, all of those little things, like it's never perfect, but yeah, look at a few different sources, look to find out whether or not they're talking about, opposing views, peer-reviewed studies, whether they tell you this is not medical advice. That if they're covering their own ass that hard from the beginning, it's probably because they know it won't stand up.
What do you think? Like, sometimes it's just, even if you think their advice is completely scientific, just to cover your own butt, you might just say that.
So the difference is that in the medical organizations that are presenting this information, the way that they're presenting this information is in a basic fact, just bullet point kind of factual manner, right? So they're saying that water hydrates the body by providing H2O to red blood cells, right? Where the difference is the individuals often that use that terminology are making very, very specific medical claims that they have no basis whatsoever to point to. And so, yeah, again, it's not a 100% of the time that you see that's going to be the dead giveaway. But it is one of those things, though, that if you do see that and they are claiming that this works for everybody, definitely look into that further, because that is a standard method that these types of Gwyneth Paltrow's Goop, that site that puts out all the pseudoscientific garbage and stuff. That's all throughout her products. They tell you this does this does that, not actually for any medical reasons whatsoever. So,
Right. So guys, I posted a link on our YouTube's community tab that is only visible to our members, YouTube members. If any YouTube members want to come up and talk to us live on air, There's only a few minutes window that you could come up. Like I'm gonna delete that link soon. So if you want, come up, take advantage of that. But if nobody comes, we're gonna end the stream quite soon. So we have 2 more questions. This is an exciting one. Okay, so patron question: what do you think of Andrew Tate's arrest? I think he was seen carrying the Quran. Yes, did you see that?
I didn't
Did
see
you
him
see-
holding the Quran. No, that's very
Wait.
interesting.
I saw
Yeah.
that in the Muslim
Very
Skeptic. Hold on.
interesting.
Yeah, he came out.
I think that's
Why
a
do you
good
think he's
PR
doing that?
tactic for him.
Yeah, that is like, okay, here, let me show you the picture. This is amazing. I cannot believe this guy. This is so much entertainment value here. Look at this. The Muslim. Look at
Oh
this.
my God. Oh my.
Daniel.
That's not even like that's just blatant. He's not even like, he's purposefully like holding it away from himself, like trying to be like, oh look, I got a Quran with me. Like, had he had it like tucked up under his arm or something, or like holding it a little bit more close to him, maybe I would feel a little bit different. But this just feels like he's like purposefully trying to like, oh, look at me, I'm a good Muslim.
This is what, okay, why do you think he's trying to do this? I mean, it's a really good way of changing the discussion.
Yes.
You know what I mean?
Yes. It's a good PR move on his part.
It's it's very effective. It will change the discussion from like, oh yeah, you had women held against their will. You know, you literally had slaves. You were using women as, you know, sex slaves, basically, to work for you. That's what you were doing. That is the conversation. That is not a conversation that makes him look good. So why not hold a Quran? Why not change the conversation to like, oh, Andrew Tate is, you know, walking around with a Quran in his hand. And look, it's working. Look at the Daniel Hagaju saying, Brother Andrew going to court carrying a Quran. Why should I not defend my brother and pray for the best? Look at what you have to do to get these people's support, right? You could literally be using women as sex slaves, okay? And they're willing to look past that because you're carrying a Quran.
Yep.
That's what it takes. Yep. And they're like, why shouldn't I? Why shouldn't I defend him?
And of course, we had that brilliant take. I mean, just brilliant take by Hakikaju about, you know, the reason why he believes Andrew Tate is innocent, of course, because, you know, innocent until proven guilty, you know, that's why he believes that, which was just like, when I saw that the other day on Secular Jihadists, it's just like, oh my God, that's so stupid. It's like, no, I don't think he did it because of innocent until proven guilty. That's not what that means. That's not how that works. It just isn't. It has nothing to do with that. Yeah, it just, yeah, it looks to me like he's very much doing it purposefully as a way to, exactly what you said, change the narrative, get all of this support that he's clearly getting. It doesn't seem to me to be genuine, but at the same time, he says it's genuine. I'm going to take him at face value. I'm going to, you know, accept that he's, you know, converted and a true believer and whatnot. But yeah, it seems to me a little bit hollow, a little bit not sincere. So yeah. I don't know. Yeah, we'll find out.
Pointless Fight just saying, Armin, as an alternative to Hell's CEO reward on Patreon, private discussion with you every week, can I pay you $100 to join Bill Jensen's Discord to talk to him when he streams? Yeah, sure. Just if you're a Hell CEO on Patreon, just message me, and you know, for I will spend extra time looking into this as your support for Atheist Republic. Why not? I will do that. Yeah. All right. Let's do this. Okay. I don't know much about this. This is our last question. What are your thoughts on Company Town? Do you see them making a resurgence in the coming space race. So company towns, my understanding, are towns literally made and run by companies, where with the people in the city are the employees of the company, and the people buy stuff, work for the company and buy stuff from the company at the same time to live. And sometimes instead of money, they might even get credits for their work to use that credit to buy things from the company itself. And that's a very dangerous environment, because if you have little options to leave the company, because now your life is so tied into the company is now capable of abusing you, because you don't have that much. Your life is so tied into the company, your family and your home and your life, that the inconvenience of leaving it might turn you into a slave. And I think that could be even more dangerous if leaving requires you to switch planets. So yeah, that could even be more dangerous if you need the company itself, if you need the company's rockets to go back home. So as dangerous as company towns were, it could be even more dangerous if you have traveled to another planet on the company's rocket. Yeah. So what do you think?
Yeah, I mean, the United States definitely has a pretty deep history of company towns, especially west of the Mississippi. It was something that was pretty standard, mainly because the only people that could afford to get out that far a lot of the times were, institutions that had more capital at their disposal. So they don't. Company towns don't necessarily equal a terrible situation, right? It is possible with some pretty stiff regulation and safeguards in place to make them, not essentially just putting you into debt for the company. Because like the store where you would buy all your groceries would be a company owned store, and like the hospital would be company owned, and like everything, at least that's what the history has been of it. So definitely one of those things that, like, okay, I guess maybe not, by necessity, this is a horrible thing. But I think pretty much every example we've ever had throughout history has been pretty bad. I know we've in the past talked about, private and public partnerships. I think that really is the way to go, because you have, the private institutions that are incentivized to do stuff like that for profit for themselves. But you also have the public safeguards in place to make sure that it just doesn't become, a terrible autocracy and all that. Do I see them resurging with the potential of a stronger space race coming on? Not really. What I see is I think we're going to start to see like what we saw in the UK, where recently they had a rocket launch. It was a 747, took up these rockets. Then they were going to shoot satellites into space. Unfortunately, there was a bit of a problem and the rockets didn't work right. But what you had was a really large amount of public support from that city that was really excited about it. And I think like 10,000 people showed up, to watch the launch. So I think you're going to find stuff like that, where you start to see like cities that, highlight maybe their space program a little bit more. But I kind of doubting that we're going to start seeing like, them building these rocket, factories and then a bunch of houses and stuff coming around it. That just seems like a little old hat at this point, So
yeah. By the way, look at Pointless Fudge is very much into making this happen.
This person is committed. I will give them that.
Yeah,
I respect that tenacity.
I do. Yeah, like, look, Susanna, did you hear that? Armin versus Bill might happen after all this time. And then Doorknob said, like, "Will you change your moniker to Pointed Fudge after it happens?" Because that's good. And I guess like Pointless Fudge is like, good question. Armin versus Bill would be the battle of the century, FYI. And so Bill has been raging at Armin basically every single stream Bill has had recently. Really?
Armin, I've been told, Armin, that you can measure your success by the amount of haters that you have,
Yes.
So maybe hey, good on you, man.
Bill is serious. Okay, yeah, sure. Message me on Patreon. We'll see what we can do. Anyways, that was the last Patreon question, and I'm going to now delete the link for anybody to come up because we're going to end the stream now. So I'm going to delete it.
You guys
All
missed
right.
your chance.
Yes, it's okay. It's okay. It's okay. Um, Bill Jensen is the best. I agree. I should actually watch more of his content. Actually, I don't know.
Okay. All right.
Yeah. Okay. All right, guys. We're gonna end this here. Thank you, everybody, for your questions. The questions today were good. I enjoyed them. And again, if you want us to answer your questions in the future, consider becoming a patron. Link to our Patreon is in the description, or you could just use super chats. If you want to come talk to us live on air, consider becoming a YouTube member. YouTube membership is right next to the subscribe button. Do not support us financially if you can't afford that. Oh, we got a super chat. I will. Wow, amazing. I will highlight that right now. But just look at this $50 super chat by LilyPad LA, saying thanks for another great show, guys. Amazing, guys. We get such amazing support, especially from LilyPad and Secular Sakai. Given the size of our channel, this is amazing support. Thank you so much. We actually do need this. Oh yeah, I forgot to mention to you guys. We are Atheist Republic is a little bit struggling with some financials, so these super chats really help. And also, so if you guys want to support us like this, well, not this much because that is a lot of you can't afford that. But thank you so much, LilyPad. But we have our PayPal in the description as well. We have our Patreon. We have our membership. We have the donate button as a nonprofit because Atheist Republic is a 501c, is a charity. So you could use the donate option as well. But if you can't afford that, you could just like the video. Liking the video helps our channel grow. It's free to like the video, so please go ahead and do that. But again, LilyPad, thank you so much for the $50 super chat. That's an amazing amount of support. Thank you so much. All right. And she's saying, LilyPad is saying, everyone go like the video. Yes, please, guys. And leave a comment. Leaving a comment also really helps grow the channel. And like and subscribe and hit the bell notification. Anything else? Oh, Susanna saying, oh my God, thank you for the super chat, LilyPad. Wow.
Yeah. And share it out, y'all. 10 minutes before we start the show, 10 minutes after the show's over, just share it out to people, let people know that we're out here having fun. And don't forget, you got the news coming up on Sunday, y'all. So
yes, guys. Yes. Make sure you subscribe because me and Susanna are going to be covering the news in how many days? Wait, when is that? How many days?
4 days?
Maybe? No.
3.5 days?
Wait. When is the news? Oh yeah, you're right. 1, 2, 3, 4 days. In 4 days.
Okay. We're struggling with basic math and calendars.
Yes. All right, in 4 days. Okay. All right, guys. Talk to you then. Bye. Mwah.